Brian, they already know what your last name is, so I don't have to say it. Um, though, did you notice that the market's been down?
Yeah, we've had some tough days. We've had a tough month. We've had a tough 2025. And to my, and you know how frail and fragile I am. I'm
I know.
only up 25% over the last 6 months on my Tesla shares, so I am pretty devastated.
I know. It's really hard on a person, isn't it?
It is. And so yes, but I bought a month ago. I bought 2 months ago.
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
hang in there,
Um,
buddy.
hang in there, buddy. When I bought in May of 2019, my I watched my value go down as well. But I did not panic because I researched this to a degree that I'm confident that I'm sometimes able to see things that others are not, and I behave accordingly.
That's right. Yes. You
But
have
I,
you have
yeah,
conviction.
but I'm also not a trader. If I was a trader,
Yeah.
I'd be kicking myself constantly for not selling out at the all-time highs 2 years ago and at the all-time highs earlier this year. But uh, you know, mm, I don't do that.
Yes.
If I was a person who did that, I would have sold out, uh, you know, 800% ago, sort of thing.
Exactly. When I was trading, and I did spend a year trading daily, sometimes more than once a day, two, three times a day. When I was doing that, the fear was always there. The fear that when I sold, that it would keep going up, and the fear that when I bought, it would keep going down. So there was a constant fear. When I'm in a holding pattern like now, it's kind of like, what it does this month, what it does next month. But what I'd like to do with you today,
Hmm.
go through some of the reasons why Tesla might be down now, which might be
Great.
instructive for people that do trade a little bit or who want to buy more or trying to decide an entry point or something like that.
Sure.
So I've got a few here, and maybe you'll have others that I'm not thinking of. So number one, and I think this is the biggest. Okay, this for me is the number one reason. Tesla is a sentiment driven or what they call a story stock. It went way up past any reasonable relationship with reality when it got to 480, 488 intraday. And then, the street said, that's just way too much. I'm taking profits. And now, as it has come down, as the it's getting closer to what the street thinks the real value is right now. What do you think about that thought?
All of that makes perfect sense. We have seen the stock go way up on very little news. The Hertz deal is a great example. Hertz announced we're going to buy 100,000 cars over a period of years, which as a percentage of total production is not all that much. And yet it drove this stock through the roof. And then, of course, reality comes crashing back. This isn't a cajillion cars out the door today. They're not pulling out a credit card for each individual purchase. This is weird. What are we doing? And it settled back down a bit. And then we watched it go down to 105, 110 on, again, no news. The company was executing very well. They were you know, steaming ahead nicely, I guess, is what electricity can do. I don't know. But the kettle was boiling and there was no tea. So I don't know what to say. Uh, yeah, sentiment is a big part of it. This isn't Coca-Cola or IBM. I mean, IBM does still innovate to a degree, but this isn't something where you can just look at the price to earnings, look at the dividend, and say, yes, this is the blue chip I wish to invest in.
Number two on my list would be market sentiment was super risk on earlier this year, and now the overall PE was actually stretched to like 24, which is super high, like maybe the highest almost ever that the PE has been stretched on the S&P. But now, with that risk on has not so strong. We'll talk about that on another one later. So, what do you think about the being stretched? The overall market was too stretched.
There is a limit to how much chaos I can afford in my head. And when I'm working too many hours, I want a hobby that isn't stressful. When there's too much responsibility at home, I can't do things like be in a play. It's too much. My mind needs rest. If A trader is worried about the entire economy. They don't want to also have to worry about every company within their portfolio. I think the risk situation is such that um, they need to free up some headspace that they would otherwise dedicate to following Tesla to an extreme degree and say, look, there's too much chaos right now. We need to figure out something that's uh, less risky.
Number three is that it turns out that the investing group out there, the Wall Streeters and the investing public, they always get surprised that the first quarter is slow.
Hmm.
And so every year for the last 4 years, the stock has sold off in the first quarter and then has rebounded near the end of the second quarter. Do you think that's part of what's happening again this year?
Yes and no. It is part of it. But we are seeing a slowdown that is in excess of a traditional first quarter slump because Tesla's best-selling car, made in 4 factories globally, is largely been down for retooling. And people say, no, no, no. That lack of sales is because of headwinds, because of opinions of Elon or Tesla or the US or whatever it may be. But I say, flip the script. What if sentiments were at all-time highs? Just think how many more refreshed Model Ys they could have sold in January and February. Well, the answer is none. They weren't for sale. So I don't know how you do. People forget that you can't sell a product that isn't available. So I think that would lead to some tailwinds going into Q2 when people are finally able to actually get it. They are now increasingly available to look at in showrooms, to even test drive at different locations. And the reviews are exactly what we expected, what you and I expected. It is a Model Y, the car we already know and love, except better. And it's not more expensive unless you get the launch edition, but non-launch edition sales are already open in some markets and expected to open up more broadly very soon.
Number four, headlines about, excuse me, headlines about January sales fit the Elon politics narrative. So a nervous market that was turning to risk off anyway starts selling the vulnerable growth stocks, not just Tesla, but other growth stocks as well.
That may be true for retail investors. I don't believe it's as true for institutional investors. They look at uh, I don't think they look at it like that. I think they look at data, and the data does not support that narrative. They know the factories are retooling. It would be great if investor relations would put out a statement saying, guys, come on. It would be great if this was more clearly elucidated at the quarterly earnings call. But, there's a lot of missed opportunities on the PR front at Tesla. And the argument is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The truth comes out eventually. Well, it does, but there are people who are panicking right now because of this. But I would say that that's a very small component. Yes, there is a narrative that Tesla's done for. There's always been that narrative. But the fact that there is a slowdown in production and therefore deliveries does feed into that narrative a bit.
So we have concern and confusion about tariffs and their impacts, incorrect, scary headlines from the mainstream media that are making consumers afraid and concerned about how the tariffs might impact their lives.
I haven't seen the headlines, so I can't speak to those. If you told me that the online media was blowing things out of proportion to their benefit, Randy, I would show you my shocked face, and it looks like this. That's something that happens. There are real concerns about this. Declaring massive tariffs with your 3 largest trading partners is that's chaos. That's grounds for chaos right there. That's cause for alarm. That's concerning. Any part of your car that's imported is going to cost more, but forget the cost of your car. Even if your car was made domestically with things that you could get, even just within your own state, everybody's buying habits are going to be affected by this. If all of the things they buy on a daily basis are now going to cost 20, 25% more, it is going to cause a ripple that goes through the entire economy, and probably of sufficient magnitude that we'll see the ripple come back around a time or two. It's going to bounce off the walls and come back. So this is a very weird move. And the only people I see who are really supporting it are ones who have not seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where Ben Stein describes in 30 seconds how tariffs work. And apparently that movie is just too hip for some folks.
Well, we won't get into the tariff argument right now, even though, of course, you probably know that I'm a big fan of the tariffs, although 25% we know is probably not going to be a keeper. So, in the long haul, at least. Number 7, I don't know. I might have skipped over something here. Real concern about the brand issue in Europe.
So I don't have a good barometer on the sentiment on the ground in Europe. Headlines are not going to give you the representative picture. I had a friend who watched a documentary about the moon slipping away, which it is, by an inch a year, and the chaos it would cause and how life on Earth would cease to exist. And I said, yeah, I would take all that with a grain of salt. Well, but they didn't have anyone on who said reasonable, sane things. I said, why would they? That doesn't sell. So headlines, I'm not saying that the sentiment, that there isn't a strong anti-Elon sentiment, a strong there could be. But I do not have access to the kinds of people, the kinds of data that I would need to make a conclusion like that. We are seeing sales down across most of Europe. England has had very strong Tesla sales, but it's only one country out of many. But again, the factory is largely retooling. You can't sell cars you're not building. And they said, well, right, but what about Model 3 sales in Europe? We don't have it. It's not broken down. In China, we can see Model 3 sales separately from Model Y. It is in the China passenger vehicle delivery numbers that are posted. And we can see that Model 3 sales are as strong as ever. And Model Y is this little tiny sliver on top of it because that's all they made. So it is entirely possible that Tesla in Europe will see a big slump in sales. But the serious prognosticators are all saying too soon to say.
All right. So would stock purchasers, people that are thinking about buying more stock or trimming or selling their stock, would they be concerned about the $7,500 IRA credit going away?
I don't know. I don't know. They should be. The proposals have not moved past the introduce a bill stage. When they move past that, it will become more clear if those things are a concern. If it's even going to pass, it may not pass. It turns out that people are using this credit in all 50 states, in I think every district in the country. But we know that this administration doesn't have a problem cutting things without consulting Congress, even though it's supposed to be Congress's job to approve and allocate funding. So anything could happen. Are investors worried about it today? I think there's a long list. I think you have a long list, and I think this is at the bottom of it.
Okay. All right.
What would you say on that, by the way?
I think that it was higher on the list earlier. And the only reason I think that it's dropped down the list is because there's so many other things right
Not
now.
a lot of fresh chaos.
Fresh chaos.
Fresh, locally sourced, domestic, homegrown chaos.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That we agree on 100%. Number 9, uncertainty about the Model Q, if and when it will be launched.
Oh, I don't think that's dragging on the stock. On production, I don't know. It is so unclear what it is going to be that I don't know how you could wait for it. So I don't think that's it. I think the real problem with people waiting is people who want the new Model Y. And I think the number of pre-orders we've seen is just a fraction of what we're going to see, because these aren't pre-orders, these are orders. And if you want a non-launch edition, in most markets, you cannot yet order a non-launch edition Model Y. So we don't even know how big the demand will be. I am not in a position where I need a car. I just got a car in October of 2023, but this car is so much better that I would consider it if there's any way I could financially swing it. So there are a lot of, and that means more 3s and Ys going up on the secondary market. for buyers who are not able to spend that much money.
Yeah. What about the concern that Elon Musk has too much on his plate? He even said he made the statement that he would be fully absorbed by Doge for 4 months.
Well, he doesn't believe in work from home. He believes that you have to be in the office, and I agree with him. So, you know, there, I don't know. The company's been set up to run very well in his absence, but uh, it creates all kinds of to square that circle. You got to really exercise your double think, stretch out your mental gymnastics, and find a way to make it make sense. Because clearly he should be paid for his time that he's not putting in because he already put in time because he doesn't need to be there, but everyone needs to be there. So it makes sense. I don't think I don't think investors are worried by the fact that he's not there. We've seen the management team. We've got to meet the management team at the big investor day year and a half ago. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel that that team is exceptional and know what they're doing and are doing it very well.
There's a expectation that Robotaxi will be launched in June in Austin. We're getting closer and closer by the day. Of course, that happens every year. Every year we get closer and closer to June during the first half of the year. Anyway, as we get closer, people are concerned that maybe it isn't quite there yet. That
Hmm.
they're not seeing the final ability to be as good or better than Waymo, and that might be causing anxiety in the markets, which are probably at least $50 to $100 of the price of the stock right now is all about Robotaxi.
I would, I don't believe that that's a legitimate fear. I think it is very possible that the June date slips. But I don't see if we get an announcement tomorrow that that's not going to be June, it's going to be July. I cannot see that having a meaningful impact on the stock.
Okay. All right. The ever-present competition for vehicles. The competition is coming, especially in China.
Mhm.
And then also for FSD, competition for FSD, and for robots. So when these investors see a new robot dancing or doing something, or they see a new vehicle coming out that looks pretty darn good, that maybe they're like, oh, well, maybe the competition is coming. I should trim a little bit.
I don't know what the average investor considers in their valuation. And honestly, I don't know if they know. I think they just pick a number and that's a number. And I want it to be a little higher than it is. I want it to be a little, I don't think they actually create complicated spreadsheets to determine what they think the valuation is. Wall Street investors do, and I don't think they've assigned much value to Dojo or Optimus or really Cybercap. Now, maybe they've assigned value to one or two of them, certainly not all of the things that Tesla's working on. We didn't see any tracking of the value of Megapacks until the revenue was already like $100 million, uh, like a quarter. So, and now it's in the billions, and they're like, oh, man, we forgot to include that. You didn't forget. We told you repeatedly. You just said no. So I don't think that that's the issue. If you're following the bot story closely enough to say, I want to see more from Tesla because I haven't seen anything recently. You know that they've still been working. You know that a lot of companies are just now catching up to where Tesla was at previous demos. And most of all, you know that even if Tesla isn't the first mover, they'll be the best mover because they've got the manufacturing edge that would allow them to sell the finished product at half the competition's price, maybe a tenth of it, and still make the most money.
All right. How about the uncertainty about the ramp of Juniper? We know that it's ramping in China, but we're still a little unclear about what's happening in the other three manufacturing facilities. And maybe some of the stock, maybe some people that own the stock are like, well, if they can't get this up to numbers, it could be a tough year.
I mean, that's assigning an arbitrary date for when good is. If you're just looking for, and that's a problem you will see sometimes with big investors is they're only focused on the quarter or next quarter or fiscal year or just 2025. The ramp is happening. It's coming along fine. I don't think any retail investors are concerned with the ramp. We saw the Model 3 ramp, it went great. The Model Y ramp in China is already basically done. It's back to pre-refresh levels, and we expect it to go a little higher than that still. So if Fremont or Texas or Berlin take a little longer, take an extra month or 2 or 3 to fully ramp, who cares? It won't matter. We just need to get back up to speed to move units. And if that's something people are concerned about, that it's going to be delayed, what an opportunity you can see into the future because and invest accordingly.
So the overall market now is down about 5% from its all-time highs, which actually isn't that big a deal considering we've been up over 20% 2 years in a row. But some people are thinking that it might correct even more than that. And so they might be trimming Tesla just because.
That is, I think, a valid concern. And if I wasn't following the company as closely as I am, I would have probably sold as it fell into the low threes because I can see things getting worse before they get better. And I'm up so much that I wouldn't feel too bad if I missed a little bit of boat for risk of, you know, I think we're in a time of tremendous uncertainty.
Well, that
And
would
it is largely my fault. I found this cursed monkey paw and I wished to live in interesting times.
so my number 16 would take right off of what you just said. I have been talking about a recession now for 6 weeks. Finally, the rest of the world has caught up with me, and they realize that when you've got this much chaos, this much confusion, when you're sending immigrants back home, and you're not allowing millions of immigrants to come into the country, and then you also have DOGE, which is cutting $1 trillion or more out of the federal budget. That means that there's people that are not working, people and products that are not being sold to the government, et cetera, that all of that has to have an impact on the economy. And that maybe we're going to have a recession. And so then people will be, well, if we're going to have a recession, maybe that's going to hurt Tesla sales. Maybe I should trim something of my investment.
Isn't that what you voted for?
It is. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
there you go. So, I mean, if people have a problem with the recession, with all these job losses, with the record high unemployment figures we haven't seen in years, they can leave a comment thanking Randy for for his contribution to the chaos. I don't consider you personally an agent of chaos, but you are a fan of chaos. It's exciting.
Oh, no,
I
no, not because of the excitement, although I do like the excitement. But the chaos is, if the chaos is the kind of chaos that I approve of, I wouldn't like the chaos if it included, body bags. That would not be good chaos. Yeah.
In which country?
Especially in our country. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because they're already piling up in other countries, but that's a different topic. There's a lot of, I think people who are concerned that they may lose their job or they may not be able to afford things. Um, I can see people wanting to put cash aside, sell out of things. Who was the giant? Was it, Mark Cuban, who was it? I don't remember how many years ago, but he said, boy, I am just uncertain. And he sold everything and he was sitting on cash, an endless, like a Scrooge McDuck pile size mountain of gold, saying, too much uncertainty, I'm out.
Right.
I assume he got back in. Um, I didn't see what he saw, and apparently no one did because it
Didn't
appears to have been the wrong move, both in retrospect and in current spec at the time. But hey, I can see people having that opinion.
Yeah. Number 17.
Oh, wow, we're still
Actual,
going.
actual individual and institutional reductions in stock ownership due to politics.
Well, what will they put the money in instead? This isn't you and me where we could
I
say,
meant
well,
the specific, I'm sorry, I meant the specific politics around Elon Musk.
oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's a double-edged sword. There is a new risk, which is what if the administration turns on him? What if things get ugly and they need a fall guy and they decide Elon is that fall guy? That could be a potential risk. I don't know if that would happen. No one does at this point, but uh, it is a risk that didn't exist 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So I think, hmm, um, yes, because there are other investments they could put it in. there are good investments out there. I don't know which ones they are.
Are concentrated.
Right. I'm a little concentrated, but it's my attention that's concentrated.
Right.
I don't want to invest in a company unless I thoroughly understand them, their vision, their roadmap, their risks. I used to do a series on Are They Doomed? And I had to finally stop it because no one was watching it but me. Uh, and there are a lot of work to put together. And there was no real appreciation for that depth of analysis. So yeah.
All right, the last one on the list. Thank you, Brian, for going through these with me. A perception that the politics involving Elon Musk could impact vehicle sales and stock ownership.
Not stock ownership because you don't know what I own. And when I'm at the water cooler, my coworkers would never know what I own unless I tell them. And I'm honest. Whereas what I drive is a different matter. I know people who will not buy a Cybertruck. They were waiting for the rear wheel drive version that's less expected to be less expensive. And then they said, I'm going to wait until the hate dies down so that I can drive one without feeling like a target. Model Y owners do not feel quite the same problems. I've driven a Model Y a lot, 30,000 miles over a year and a half, and I have never once experienced hostility. There was a guy who may have been rolling coal, but I think his truck was just a piece of garbage. And unless I'm stuck behind you, you can't roll coal on me without my consent because I will be in the next county by the time you get into second gear. So there's that. I know a number of people who are sufficiently disenchanted with Tesla, with the giving up on the mission of transitioning to a sustainable energy future. That was the mission for a lot of early buyers, and that mission, I don't know if it's still stated or not, but it's no longer the thing. And maybe they'll come back when things change. There is a forgive and forget period, but the clock doesn't start ticking on that until things change. So
Yeah, so I would half agree with your thought on the mission because I've talked about it. I've done a couple of shows on it. So I think you're right that the stated mission no longer is that
mhm.
because the other missions that are around well, in particular around Optimus and AI seem now to be a bigger mission. Uh,
Mhm.
that mission would also contribute to the original mission because to the extent that you don't have people driving to work and the robots just live there, it would solve part of the emissions problem. And this the sustainability problem. But I think that the original product lines are still contributing to that mission. So we're still in the car and energy business, both of which would be moving us in the direction of sustainability.
So the last thing I'd want to say to investors, potential investors, former investors, is if you're worried about Elon brand damage and politics, consider what the future of the company's products will be and how it will play into it. Tesla will remain a car company for a long time, but they are doing other things. Let's talk about megapacks. Do you think the uh, the grid manager for BC Hydro is going to say, well, I was going to get the best battery storage system, but now I think I'm going to get one from China instead because I just don't like the guy. No, you don't get that luxury. You are in business. And that is also true of Optimus. If you and I say, you know what, Randy, I hate something. I hate something so much I will never buy an Optimus. Guess what? The companies you're using are using Optimus. They're going to because if it works, then it works. I've seen people try to boycott Amazon. Heard this great radio story about it maybe 3-4 years ago, where the author said, I decided, not out of principle, but just because I wanted to experience the boycott Amazon thing. So I did it all the way. And it meant I couldn't watch Netflix because Netflix uses Amazon cloud computing. They store it there. And Amazon is so much bigger than you realize. So you can hate Amazon all you want. I'll never buy a product from them. I may have told you the story. Someone said, I went out of my way. I went straight to the merchant's website. I paid extra to buy it straight from them. And then the Amazon box showed up because
Right.
it was fulfilled by Amazon
Yes.
because it's everywhere, because it works.
Yeah.
So if you're worried that people will have an effective boycott on Tesla, then discount some percentage of auto sales and or growth. But when it comes to the robotaxis, they're going to be Tesla. When it comes to licensing FSD, it's going to be Tesla inside. When it comes, I'll never buy a GM. Really? Because you're driving a Honda Prologue. That's a GM, my friend. Well, it's different. Is it? It's those people. Those people will have, at best, some impact, but they're not going to touch the business to business side. Well, my small business won't buy 3 trucks. Okay. Somebody else's, this isn't about 3 trucks. This is about the 300 robots. This is about the power supply. This is about all of it. So that would be a consideration. And the flip side to that is if Elon becomes synonymous with this administration, then it could be an issue where BC Hydro would say, well, we don't deal with hostile foreign agents, which Elon is. And I'm not saying that BC Hydro would take that approach, but there could be governments that make that determination, which is why a lot of those countries and companies won't buy battery energy storage solutions from China.
Yeah. As you were going through that, your summation, it occurred to me a summation that I didn't use when I was drawing this up, and it is that would you kind of and listening to you respond to all of them, that more or less Tesla is very volatile, has always been very volatile. Elon Musk is wild and crazy and has always been wild and crazy and does wild and crazy stuff and sometimes I think with the kids that were lost in that mine shaft or whatever that was that were that
The
one I think
cave. Mm-hmm.
cave I think that one impacted the stock for a minute. So those things have always been going on. The stock has always been extremely volatile. It has tremendous amounts of puts and calls being traded, commonly the number one in the stock market.
No, not in years though. It's too big to short, and a lot of the shorts lost the appetite. It hasn't been one of the top shorted stocks in a very long time.
But it is commonly the number one call with calls,
Mm.
most number of calls. People use covered calls and they have all kinds of reasons to use the calls. So anyway, it occurs to me that, all of these things might have a sliver of impact, but the truth is it's kind of the way this stock is. It's just that kind of stock. And sometimes it goes with the market like it is right now. It's tending to follow the market right now. Other days it goes the opposite of the market. But the swings are always wild.
And there is no predicting it.
Yeah.
There is no predict. It can fall or gain 20% on no news, which is to me shocking for a company with a market cap this large. I've seen people say, well, there's clearly somebody's trying to, some whale investor is dumping shares. No, because if you have over a certain percentage in the company, those sales are disclosed.
Oh,
So it becomes astrology at some point.
it definitely does. Yeah, we didn't even talk about the charts.
Yeah. Well, I guess really it's phrenology because I am scratching my head.
There you go. That's right. Brian White. Did I do that again?
I think that
Brian,
was the first time, but
Brian, the
must
first
must
time.
be confusing. It's because we look alike.
It is. It's the similarity in your
Hairstyle and good
no,
looks.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Are you sure?
We're good looking dudes.
Thanks. Follow him. Follow him over there on Futuraza. And you just put Futuraza in wherever you're going. Doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
type in Futuraza and
Safeway doesn't matter.
on that note, it's been great talking to you.